like a lot of budding product designers and all those graphic designers and people who are associated with this industry or are trying to break into this industry have this thought of like what actually a professional like you who has been in the industry for a long time, like what actually is your thought process while you are designing something from a scratch, or like what is your approach while you have a project from a scratch and you need to build something, you need to design. So yeah.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned process, because that's actually something that not everyone finds at the beginning of their career. And
Exactly.
when I work with a lot of junior designers, that's, I suppose, the hardest part for them, to find that process. And as soon as you establish the process for yourself, suddenly everything becomes much more simple. You don't have the freezing thoughts of, oh, you know, oh my God, I have a new project, I don't know where to start, or I have this problem, I don't know how to solve it, because you have the process and now you know how to approach any challenge. And I suppose there is no one way of doing things, and there is definitely not the right way of doing things. And there are a lot of brilliant organizations out there that share how they do things. And I suppose I learned from a lot of them, and kind of my process is not that different from any design agency or any creative person. So usually there is kind of some sort of a research phase. And again, that can be applicable to a creative process. It could be applicable to a tech process or business
Definitely.
process. So first you do your research, you understand what you're dealing with. If we're talking about creative or a brand project or anything like that, you could talk to your customers, you could talk to your colleagues, you could talk to, basically trying to find out as much information about the problem or the thing that you're working on. And then kind of the second part, that's when you start coming up with ideas and kind of trying to think, based on everything you heard, based on everything you've seen, what might be a good idea. And then obviously the third phase is like prototyping and testing. As with anything, you kind of trial different things, you either show them to the client if it's a client project, or you test them yourself and see what works and doesn't, and constantly tweak and iterate. So in that sense, it's very kind of a common process, but
Definitely.
the trick is to know what these things are for you. So for example, how do you do research? How do you get inspired? Do you go to museums? Do you go to libraries? Do you go to for a long walk, and that's what brings you inspiration? Where do you get information? Do you get it by talking to people, or do you do it by reading books, or do you do it by going on the internet? What are your sources of information that you use for the research phase? Then again, ideation. How do you ideate? Do you like to close yourself in a room and in a darkness sit and think about things, or are you more of a kind of a social person that just likes to talk to different people and bounce ideas around and come up with different things? Again, what is the space and how do you ideate the best? And then again, prototype and test. Again, depending on the project, do you need feedback from the business or from the market? So you can't just like prototype and test in your own room. You actually need to constantly, I don't know, run Facebook ads and see who clicks on them, or show something to your potential customers and get their opinion. So again, that process can change, but overall it's kind of this